What's up everyone, it's Endymion, and this weekend DC's newest comic book dumpster fire, The Flash, has been unleashed upon the movie-going audience. With many saying the film is fun and exciting, while others not even willing to give it a chance due to the taint of Ezra Miller in the leading role. The Flash was also reported to be one of the most expensive films of all time, with a budget ballooning around $300 million, meaning DC needed this film to break records in order to even be profitable. Well, unfortunately for DC, with recent stinkers like Shazam 2, Black Adam, and nonsense like Birds of Prey, The Flash seems to be the latest to join the assembled disaster that is the current DC Comics movie universe. The Flash ended up making around $24.5 million on its opening day, with about $9.7 million on Thursday previews, which is about half of what Across the Spider-Verse achieved on its Thursday pre-shows, to give you a comparison. According to Variety, The Flash is set to earn around $67 million in its opening weekend, which puts it in the same opening bracket as Black Adam and Aquaman. However, Aquaman did end up making over $1 billion, but this was before the whole Amber Heard nonsense happened. And Black Adam was a mess, and I genuinely thought it was one of the worst films I saw last year. But The Flash bombing proves modern Hollywood is in the dumps, and Warner Discovery has a ton of work to do when it comes to making people believe in DC's characters again when it comes to their big tentpole movies. And you know these studios are out of touch when the production designer on The Flash was confident people would simply forget about Ezra Miller's insanity, and it would have no bearing on the film's financial success. The same Ezra Miller that choked a woman in public, kept a mother and her kids hostage in a house full of drugs and weapons, and even had a cult at one point. As if that wasn't bad enough, the CGI in The Flash has been called out for looking like complete ass. But according to the director, it's supposed to look that way. Wait, what? Director Andy Muschietti was quoted saying the idea behind the awful CGI was to invoke the audience into seeing the Speed Force the same way the Flash does, and that the light and textures are meant to embody a sort of water world, which is how Barry Allen sees everything from his perspective. And that it was all by design, and it was intended to look weird, which I guess it's fine if the director thinks that way, but when general audiences say something looks like butt cheeks, there's no reliable way to counter that by just saying, well, that's how it's supposed to be. If I go to a restaurant and the food sucks and the cook goes, well, that's how it's designed, it's not going to make me appreciate the garbage that's in front of me. It's going to make me question the validity of everyone who worked on the thing that I paid for. And this worries me further because Andy Muschietti is also apparently going to direct James Gunn's new DC Universe's version of the Batman. And that does not fill me with confidence. Honestly, the entire premise and how The Flash is presented makes it seem like everyone involved wanted to make anything but a Flash movie to begin with. I would wager the majority of people who have gone out to see this didn't go because of Ezra Miller's Flash, but because they wanted to see Michael Keaton as Batman again. But when the selling point of your movie about a guy that runs really fast is an old guy in a rodent costume and a lady with an S on her chest, at that point, why even make The Flash to begin with? The answer is that this movie exists for one reason only, which is to reboot the entire mess that was the DCEU in order to get it back on track. It's an understatement to say that Warner has had trouble adapting what should be easy slam dunks like Superman, Batman, and others on screen, when Marvel has been doing it for almost 2 decades now. Although Marvel's most recent phase has been anything but enjoyable, but you get what I mean. The Flash as a movie is basically an expensive reset button. And the underwhelming response to films like Shazam, Black Adam, Birds of Prey, and now this just proves how little faith people have in Warner Discovery to right this ship. Another huge selling point of The Flash are its cameos, which range from living to even dead actors being resurrected in order to evoke some level of emotion for the audience. This practice of bringing back characters played by actors who are dead is nothing new, unfortunately, since Star Wars already did this twice in Rogue One, and it's just as creepy now as it was then. The Flash, however, takes this concept, which websites are calling digital necromancy, and kicks it into high gear. And I guess spoilers for The Flash, but it kind of needs to be seen to believe, but here we go, this is from the actual movie itself. We see Christopher Reeves' Superman and Helen Slater's Supergirl. While Helen is still alive, Christopher Reeves has been dead for a long time. And seeing his now dead Superman being propped up as a cameo moment for corporate gain is all kinds of messed up. But sadly, this sort of digital necromancy is only the tip of the iceberg. I wouldn't be surprised if in like 50 years you'll see a dead Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man being propped up with deepfakes and CGI in order to get the people watching the movie to start clapping like seals while yelling, "I understood that reference."
Don't ask questions, just consume product.
Look, everything The Flash does here is just morally wrong. And it's even more gross knowing Reeves' family gave their consent to allow Warner to do this in the first place. Likely making it happen by writing a check and stuffing it in the pockets of Reeves' family made them okay with their granddad's lifeless corpse being used for corporate reasons. Don't you just love Hollywood? Jesus Christ. And while The Flash is bombing regardless of its lifeless cameos, thankfully, there's real movies in theaters right now that do the whole multiverse thing way better and in a much more respectful way. And what's funny is that Across the Spider-Verse's writers even admit that you can't hold a movie together on Easter eggs and cameos alone. And they're right. There needs to be an actual story with real characters, and it also helps not having an actual sociopath as your lead actor too. While many will look at what's happening with The Flash and simply say the reason it's falling apart is due to superhero fatigue, Spider-Verse's writers, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, just don't agree with that sentiment. The pair explain that Hollywood right now is obsessed with having Easter eggs and cameos in their movies. Likely it's because studios believe if there's blink it and you'll miss it moments, it'll push people to pay to see the movie multiple times in order to document all the hidden info, which of course leads to more revenue for the studios. Christopher Miller and Phil Lord had this to say, and I quote, "I don't believe it's superhero fatigue, I believe it's a movie that feels like a movie I've seen a dozen times before fatigue. If you're using the same story structure and the same style and the same tone and the same vibe as movies and shows that have come before, it doesn't matter what genre it is, it's going to be boring to people. And the audience in the theater cannot be sustained on Easter eggs and reveals. Or even these big, crazy multiverse stakes. They only care about it like the relationship between characters like Rocket Raccoon and Groot. And so this story is just rooted in parents and kids, and Miles and his family. With the last movie, we showed it to some friends early on and they were like, you have to get to like all these multiple spider people as quickly as possible. That's the exciting thing. And we were like, we don't think so. Because the thing that everybody seems to enjoy is the quieter scenes with Miles and his mom and dad. They can't get enough of it, and I'm so glad we stayed true to what the audience was telling us. In the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, you feel like these misfits have found their family, and that's what you're watching. That's why those movies are beloved. End quote. And those guys are right, and it's why Spider-Verse has had such a cultural impact with lasting power because it gives people what they want, but it also cares about the characters. And the legacies and all of that, and because of it, Spider-Verse, as of the making of this video, has made over $400 million at the box office. Hell, even James Gunn himself agrees with this sentiment. Here's a segment from Michael Rosenbaum's podcast Inside of You where Michael talks to James Gunn about this very thing, so here, watch.
There are too many superhero shows and movies, and because I remember when I did Smallville, there were none.
Yeah, I do think there's too many.
So what do you do about that?
But I don't think it's much less a problem of too many. And yes, we're not going to overextend ourselves at DC. We're going to be very careful with the product that we put out and making sure everything is as good as it can possibly be. But I think that what's happened is people have gotten really lazy with their superhero stories. And they have gotten to the place where, it's a superhero, let's make a movie about it. You know? And let's make a sequel because the first one did pretty well. And they aren't thinking about, why is this story special? What makes this story stand apart from other stories? What is the story at the heart of it all? Why is this character important? What makes this story different that it fills a need for people in theaters to go see? you know, or on television.
And that's a hard thing, isn't it?
And I think that it's just that's kind of gotten, you know, people have gotten a little lazy, and there's a lot of, you know, biff pow bam stuff happening in movies. And like, I'm watching third acts of superhero films where I really just don't, and I don't feel like there's a rhyme or reason to what's happening.
You don't care.
I don't care about the characters.
Right.
You know? And it's, and they've gotten too generic. Like, there's this sort of, you know, middle of the road, you know, type of, you know, genre tone that so many superhero movies have, as opposed to having, you know, very different genres. I mean, I like very serious superhero movies. I like very comedic superhero movies. I like ones that are really just, you know, a murder mystery, but it's, you know, with superheroes. You know, I like to see these different types of stories as opposed to seeing the same story told over and over again. Right. I don't know how many times I don't want to go off on anything.
No, you're not. But it's honest, and I think people really need to hear that, because it's sincere in a sense that you're also a fan, and you want to make movies that have impact, that have them that people want to see, and not recycle things. So you want to sort of condense it to a, let's make something that we really, not that people don't work hard on everything they do, everybody works hard, but the stories have to be more compelling.
Yeah, and I think that also, like, and people say superhero fatigue, but I think that, you know, you see now that it's not a real thing. People are fatigued with repetition. And I don't think it's really just superhero movies. I think you're seeing it happening now. It's spectacle films in general. And they just have gotten really generic, and they've gotten boring, and they aren't about characters, and there's no emotion to them. And there should be emotion in things no matter what. Like, that should always be.
I think especially after that clip that DC is likely within good hands with James Gunn. Of course, when it comes to The Flash and all the nonsense before it outside of the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, of course, most of what DC has done in the last 10 years has been nothing short of abysmal or okay at best. And I should clarify when I say that I mean anything tied to the DCEU specifically, since films like Joker and The Batman are honestly what I wish the DCEU looked like to begin with. If DC had movies like The Batman but for their other characters, good God, that would be something. But regardless, The Flash sits in this unfortunate middle ground where it neither exists for current expectations or those before it. It's this Frankensteinian monster of a movie that has tons of weighted baggage attached to it, while needing to center its plot on making sure it throws all that baggage away so it can race off to new horizons. But the thing is that The Flash as a film at its core represents all the worst traits and trends that modern Hollywood is known for. It has an insufferable lead actor who's an insane person in real life. The CGI looks like it could be background footage in a early 2000s Linkin Park song, and it uses the legacy and likeness of literal dead people in order to make people go bananas in the theater. The Flash is everything wrong with modern day superhero films, and it's no surprise to me anyway that it's not performing well at the box office. Unfortunately, regardless if the movie was amazing or not, the reality is that you have Ezra Miller in the leading role, dude. That would be like putting Kevin Spacey or Jussie Smollett as your lead actor with Amber Heard as the love interest, and then telling people to go see the movie. Never mind that everyone involved are insufferable crazy people, the movie itself is good. No, just no. It's not the audience's responsibility to save Hollywood from their moronic decisions. Like I said before, it's not your fault if a product fails. The failure lies only on the people in charge who made the product and thought it was good enough for you as a paying customer. So in the end, The Flash is the perfect example of the worst elements of modern Hollywood colliding with the insane real-life antics of an actor who used identity politics to shield themselves from their very real and awful choices. Hopefully DC fans can get the movies and the content they so desperately deserve, because as it stands right now, if James Gunn plays his cards right, he could surpass Marvel and leave them in his dust as long as he sticks to good storytelling and filmmaking, and not hiring insane people or pushing annoying ideologies on ordinary people. The Flash is a failure, but my friends, it is not your fault. Thank you for watching, and subscribe for more content in the future. Like the video and have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.
Why don't they like it? We spent $250 million on this.